When it comes to divisive genres, horror is no stranger to this. It has left a legacy in entertainment that far exceeds those standing with it, and especially nowadays, is probably a genre that is hardest to execute perfectly. It brings to mind a quote by the late Edgar Allan Poe: "Words have no power to impress the mind without the exquisite horror of their reality." Put bluntly, Edgar Allan Poe is stating that nothing matters without proper context. It's only when meaning is added to the words that they have an impact on the reader, whether it be a subjective or objective manner. The same can be said for horror, and to why it's taken a decline in recent years. This then leads to the fear and scare factor ending up possessing a very boring or predictable outcome. That is a mistake that a lot of horror filmmakers make recently, not implanting the depth and meaning behind areas their movies revolve around. Now, I'm not saying that to have a good movie you need depth. I'm simply stating the lazy filmmaking decisions that horror directors are known for heavily possess the ability to drag a movie down. Whether it's boring to look at set pieces, typical characters we have seen over and over again, or poor stories that include as much teenage sex orgies and spilled out guts than a beach house rented over spring break, there is always one quintessential factor to horror that has been affected the most and for the longest.
This!
The purpose of a horror is to inject a sense of fear and disturb panic to the audience, and nothing does that quite as much as a good jump scare. Or does it? I mean, let's face it, jump scares will practically scare anyone if it's used in the right manner. The timing, the suspense, and the actual subject that is shown all have to be right, and when it isn't, it could potentially destroy the whole point of the moment. There are countless moments in films where jump scares are put to bad use. The typical cliche jump scare, which mainly involves a mirror,
You're not real.
a dream, or even another dream.
God damn it!
The second type is the white knuckle suspense, brought to a close by a harmless object or subject. But then there's the jump scares that are not necessarily cliche, but are just very insufficiently executed. Wait, what? Okay, silence can be scary, that is very much proven. But for silence to be scary, you need to visually implement fear. The mistake here is that the director has basically pinpointed directly in front of you where the scare subject will appear. From the first millisecond where the tension started and this shot was placed, you instantly knew where the scare subject was going to reveal itself, therefore taking away any fear and tension from the scene. What might have been a scary alternative is the subject coming from behind or from above, and that might have tricked the audience with smart direction and maybe making it scarier, but they wasted that opportunity by blatantly showing us the origin location of the scare. Where this technique is done right is in an infamous scene in James Wan's Insidious.
I can still hear that voice.
Throughout the whole scene, the pinpoint of the jump scare is directly in front of you, but it's in a place where no one expected it. You were either focused on the story, or you were tricked into thinking the zoom in towards Josh Lambert's face was to show his expression, or visually represent the story getting into his head, when actually the shot was expressing tension by gradually zooming in towards the area in which the demon would appear. There was no obvious cue for the scare visually, only a little noise indicating an abnormal presence. There was no newly introduced angle for the jump scare, or it didn't occur in a shot present at the time. It was featured in a shot we are used to, which we have experienced, and most importantly, it was in a shot which we expected nothing from. Whilst jump scares in live action have had their highs and lows, in video games it has thrived mainly due to its element of interactivity. But out of all the Resident Evils and Silent Hills that have graced our nightmares, one game almost immediately fought its way to the top spot of many people's most harrowing gaming experiences. Outlast, without a shadow of a doubt, is a very disturbing game. Possibly even one of the most scariest video games in recent memory. And the reason for that acclaimed title isn't due to the set pieces or the visual element of the game, even though they hold a huge part to its terror factor. It is mainly due to this.
The main goal is to make the player suffer.
When an audience often thinks of jump scares, they think of it being instantaneous, and that as long as they have a shock, its work and purpose is fulfilled, which Samuel Laflamme does not seem to agree with. What composer Samuel Laflamme created was the stuff of nightmares, especially when it comes to the game's most scariest moments. Take this moment from Outlast especially, and watch to see how much of an impact the music has on you. The music continues throughout this whole segment. It doesn't just stop after the scare, it leaves you terrified and cowering in your chair. It can also be argued that the reason it is left there for so long is due to the fact that the visual element is also pretty disturbing. But that is often not the case, and what occasionally occurs is that the music instantly dies out after. What the music does is it stretches out the tension as opposed to letting it die down immediately. This is a circumstance I like to call the rubber band effect. This is when a piece of music stretches out the terror of a jump scare after it has occurred instead of it being instantaneous. The tension never seems to go away, and it's that leaves us clenching our controllers in fear tens of seconds after the jump scare. But you can't simply apply this effect to the circumstances where it doesn't make sense. Like in moments when a jump scare happens, jumping out at a character, or something along those lines.
Here again.
I mean, what do you think?
Drawing out the music wouldn't make it scarier, it would just make it seem misplaced and dumb. Now, like an actual rubber band, if you stretch it too far, it'll break and lose its initial purpose it once obtained. Outlast is a masterful example of the rubber band effect, and how it should be implemented properly in other mediums. Just watch a single gameplay segment of a chase scene from Outlast, and you'll be losing your mind, all because of a psychologically placed effect through the score. Music controls emotion, and what Outlast and Samuel Laflamme have achieved in terror has unfortunately not been implemented in many other pieces of content of the horror genre. It has been dying down into this pool of disappointment for decades now, when all this genre needs is some simple creative thinking, attention to the plot and the characters, and some goddamn originality. Maybe if we care about the characters and their goals, then it would make us fear for their lives more, like with Jon Snow facing a White Walker in Game of Thrones, or Michael Scofield and Lincoln Burrows in every single chase scene in Prison Break. Even non-horror films are using horror elements better than horror films. Characters we love and care for in moments of peril make us bite our nails and scream at the TV, or sat in dead silence when they are hiding, whether it's the rubber band effect, simple jump scares, or the atmosphere of terror that scares you most.
Help us!
We can all agree that these moments are getting lost and misunderstood. Maybe the rubber band effect can be applied to modern horror films. They have been stretched out and abused too much that they have simply broke and lost their initial purpose. Or if they haven't already, they are certainly close.